Hi everyone, welcome to this tutorial. So I thought in this one it'd be a little bit of fun just to do some distressed or corroded metal. It's nice to get the contrast going on with that as well, and it works across loads of different types of miniatures like Nurgle miniatures and undead miniatures and anything Skaven as well, that sort of stuff. So anything really that would have dirty weaponry, plague bearers, any of that sort of stuff. So you can apply this across lots of miniatures. So I'm just going to show you on this axe here, on the axe head. So the first thing I'm going to do is just real quick, is just to paint the whole axe head with a coat of lead belcher. So just a couple of coats of this, just to get a solid base coat for the next stages. And this bit isn't the most exciting part, so I'm going to do this and then we'll come back. Okay, so we've got a solid metal base coat now to work over. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go over the whole axe head with, it's a mix of Norn oil, and I've added just a touch of Black Templar as well to make the pigment a little bit stronger. If you haven't got any Black Templar, you can just add a touch of black paint. And I'm just loading the brush up now. And I'm just going to wash this over the whole axe head. So you don't have to be really neat and focused with this. You want it to sort of, what we're doing is we're matting down that metallic finish and we're dulling it as well. So if you look at old dulled metal, or like a hammerhead, like an old hammerhead is a good thing to look at. Maybe have an image search of that. You'll see that it's not very shiny at all really. So this axe head shouldn't really have any shine to it if it's like for the effect we're going for. So I'm just really slapping this on and letting it sort of sit in any of the recesses. And we're just going to get an even finish on all of that, so it's matting down that metallic. And any metal will show through underneath as well, so it's still got some of those qualities, but it's not as shiny now. So I'm just going to let that dry and then we'll come back. Okay, so that mix is now dry, so we're going to do the same thing. I'm just going to load up the brush with some Agrax Earthshade, and that's just going to go over the whole axe head as well. It's fun doing these sort of weapons, you don't have to be neat or anything. Slap it on. So we're just going to give it this finish now. I mean, if you wanted to, you could let that dry and then just add a highlight and go, okay, my weapon's done, but we're going to do some more stages now, which can add some interest and really pop out a weapon and make it look quite different. So we'll let that dry and we'll come back. Okay, so the Agrax Earthshade is now dry, so we've got a nice dull finish on that metal now, ready for some colour. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start adding some colour, and I'm going to use thinned paints for this. So I'm not using washes or contrast paints. You can do if you want, but the reason I'm using thin paints is because the pigment is going to be stronger, and we want a matte finish as well, and it's going to hold the colour really well using thinned paints. So I'm going to play around with warm and cool tones on this axe head, and it's going to really make it look quite interesting and quite different as well and give it the finish we want. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start putting the warm tones on. So this is going to be representing rust really. So I'm going to thin down some Doomball Brown. So I'm making that into like a wash consistency. I know you guys have asked to see the palette, but if I put the palette in shot, the camera tries to focus on that. So this is the sort of consistency we're going for. So just like a wash. And then I'm going to start picking out some areas to start putting this on the axe head. And then what I want to do is I don't want to do all of the areas in this brown. I want to leave some areas for the cool tones to go on. So I'm probably just going to place a bit up here. Maybe a bit down here. So you notice I'm not painting it on, I'm more just dabbing it, because we want this to have a nice mottled finish as well. So I'll place some in this bit. I think down this part of the blade would be quite cool. And we don't want to cover all of the metal with colour. We want some of it to show through as well. So I'm really just picking a few areas that I can sort of just get it in. Just a bit there, I don't know. Obviously you do the whole axe head. I'm just doing one side because I'm lazy. And this could be a sword blade, a pitted sword blade, a hammerhead, anything you like. So that's that. So starting with the darkest brown. So very warm brown doom ball. So, I mean, that's already dry, so we'll carry on straight away. So I'm just going to thin down some scrag brown now. So this is an orangey lighter brown, so it's good for rusty colours. And I'm thinning that down to that same consistency, like a wash consistency. Not too thin so it retains the colours. And then inside the area that we just painted, I'm going to be dabbing some of this. So you want it to sort of pool and create those tide marks, because that's the effect that we want. And you could add more or less, it's really up to you, depending on what model you're painting. It's really this dabbing technique that really gives it that corroded feel, that pitted feel. And you can keep going back over and over as much as you want. So just to build up the pigment if you want to. Keep going. So you can see the sort of thing we've got going on now. If I tilt it there. So you've got some of that doom ball showing, and then some of the brighter, lighter brown showing there. So we'll get that dry and then we'll come back. Okay, so the scrag brown is dry now, so you can see the axe head a little bit more now. So we've got the next stage, that's going to be, I'm going to thin down some Troll Slayer orange. So this is very, very strong in colour, so it's very orange. What we're going to do is we're going to thin that down to the same consistency. So wash consistency. And I'm going to be a bit more considered with this now, so I'm just going to dab this where I want it, so not as loose as the other stages. Using that stippling technique, which we've already covered. So we want to leave some of that previous colour, previous stages showing. On the palette it looks very orange, but once you get it on here it does start to appear like rust, and it works quite well. And as I said before, once that's dry you can go, okay, I want it a bit stronger in some areas. Just keep going over around the rivet, looks quite cool. And just keep going over until you're happy with the amount of colour that we've added in. So you get the idea now. There we go. I think the next stage we can go a little bit brighter with that orange, so I'm just going to take a little bit of Fire Dragon Bright and thin that down. Just pop that just around the rivet. Maybe just a spot here and there. Just because we can. Just to add that contrast. You can see what we're doing. There we go. Okay, so we're going to come back and then we'll move on to the cool tones next. Okay, so we're going to create some contrast using cool tones now. So I've got some Sotek green on my palette. So this is going to represent what would be verdigris or water staining, basically. So, and I know it doesn't always appear on all metals, but it looks cool, so we're going to do it. So I'm going to thin down some Sotek green to that same wash consistency. And then in some of the areas that we've not done the rust effects, we're going to start placing this colour, and it's going to heavily contrast with those warm browns. So just dabbing it on. Sort of quite randomly, but just think about where it's going to be going. the top of the axe head here. If you dab it on, it gives you those sort of tide marks that you kind of don't want in some circumstances, but in this particular one you do, because it just adds to that effect. And just keep building it up basically till you're happy with the strength of the colour. Okay, so you can kind of see the effects we've got there now. And you could add more, but I think that's enough, to be honest. I want to leave some areas as well. Okay, so the next stage is now just to thin down some Cyberite green on the palette. And then start doing, within that colour that we've just placed, just start dabbing some of this. Keep it thin, let it pull up a little bit, especially around the detail areas. Around rivets and scratches and things where it would appear more. Basically doing the same thing that we did with the rust, but with this now. So this bit's dry, so we can go back in, go back over and make it more intense. You can start to see the trick we're playing now with the warm and cool tones. So the contrast really works really well. Okay. So because that's drying already pretty quickly, we're going to the next stage already, just to save you guys messing around. So this is Gauze Blaster Green Edge Paint. Thinning this down. This is the last stage for this. So this is quite light, so we don't need a lot of this. And we're just going to keep this around the rivets. And maybe the odd little bit here and there. Yeah, you can see what we've done there. Just letting it run into those recesses. Okay, like I say, you could add more if you want to. It's really up to you. We're just showing the sort of thing we're going for. Okay, so before I go to the next stage, just real quick, I think some of the metal areas are looking a bit flat, need a bit more contrast. So I'm just going to take that previous mix of Norn Oil and Black Templar, maybe just add a bit more contrast here and there, just to break up the flatness of the metal. Just dabbing that on as well. Doesn't need a lot, but it's what I wanted to do. So it didn't take long. We'll let that dry. Okay, so we've added all the colour we want on there now. So if I just turn the axe head, you can see that some of it is still a little bit shiny and some of it is still matted down by the colours and the washes. So it's got a different finish over the entire axe head. And what I want to do is I want to make that finish all the same before we add a highlight. I'm going to use Lamian medium. You could use matte varnish or any other type of varnish to do this, but we just want to basically give it all the same finish. So I'm just going to load up with Lamian medium on the brush, and I'm just going to quickly paint one layer over the entire axe head just to pull all of those colours together and give them the same finish. So when we add the highlight in a minute, it really contrasts against this and works really well. So I'll just do this, we'll let it dry. I'll come back in a second. Okay, so the coat of Lamian medium is dry now, so the whole axe has got the same finish. You can see the colour and some of the metal showing through as well, so it's a really dulled metal now with a bit of colour added in. So the final stage is to add a very harsh contrasting highlight. So I'm going to use the brightest silver I've got. So this is Stormhose silver. So the brighter the better for this. And what you want to do is you want to hit all the edges first, just to show where like some of the underlying pure metal would be showing. So rather than just painting a line, because this is distressed metal, I like to dab it slightly so it doesn't feel so pure. So we've got that sort of dinked feel, like it's been hit in different areas many times, or it's been sort of scuffed. So you can see what's going on there. And this contrasting works really well against all of those dull colours. So the first thing is just around the entire edge of the blade. You can use the flat of your brush for this, so you don't have to be super neat. Just dabbing it on. Just turn the piece as you need to so you can access those edges. The same for sword blades as well. Just go around the edges. Because you want some of these dots to be slightly larger than others. That'll happen naturally just doing this. Try not to make a pattern out of it. Just keep going until you're happy. So I think this is stage where it really sort of pops out everything that's going on, works really well. Gives it that metal feel again as well. So now we're moving inside. So there's like a bit of detail here. So you've got to use the tip of your brush now. So I'm not painting a straight line again, I'm just dotting down. See that? Same with this side. Just make sure it's a broken line. So you guys can see the sort of thing we've got going on now. Well, I won't cut away, we'll just keep going so you can see what's going on. Okay, so the edges are all picked out now. And we'll just dot those rivets. A bit of silver. We've got those. Now there's some scratches and marks on here as well, so we'll get it in focus first. We'll just pick those out. Some of these edges, you can pull some of those lines down a little bit as if it is like a mark. There's some pitted holes here as well, so we can just pick out the bottom of those if we want to. You can see that. There's some more in here. So you can see how really using this very light silver works very well against all those dull colours now. I think like the blade edge will be the one will be the area that's got the most silver, because it's the one that this creature's been using the most. It's got these little dinks and nicks in it, so we'll pick those out first. And there's no more sculpted into this edge, but you can always add a few more if you want. just using your brush. It's really up to you. Okay, that's pretty much done. What I'll do then is, as I usually do, is I'll take a photograph of this so you can see what it looks like properly, because the camera never shows it properly. And then I'll do a recap at the end of the video. Okay, see you in a second. Okay, so you can see the finished axe head on screen there now. So you can really see the contrast between the warm tones and the cool tones that we added with the paint. And you can really see that stippling effect coming through as well. And the contrast with the bright metallic silver edge highlights as well, that really works and describes the shape of the weapon at the end as well. So like I said, it'll work for loads of different types of miniatures, and I'm sure you can give it a go. It was really quick to try, so try it yourself, guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.